Hi there, this is Jennifer over at DecorSauce. In this video, I'm actually going to share with you the process I'm going through in refinishing my living room floor. I've ripped out the carpet and now what I'm looking at is a concrete slab. So my plan for this is to actually prep it and repaint it. So I'm not going to lay another floor. I've actually never done this project before, so you're going to be learning right along with me. Here are some of the supplies that I've gathered that you're going to need for this project. You need an orbital sander, or some other kind of sander. You could also use sandpaper and a pole sander. I plan on using both. These are sheets for your pole sander. Rubber gloves, sandpaper for the orbital sander, and extra coarse grit, 2 kinds of floor paint, the paint itself and also the protective sealer gloss, concrete patch, lacquer thinner, a crowbar, 2 hammers, and a scraper for removing the glue on the floor and excess paint drips. I used the 2 hammers because some of the nails coming out of the carpet tacks were really hard to get up, so that's why I used 2 hammers. This is what your room looks like after you remove the carpet, the tacks, but before you remove the glue. What I'm getting ready to do now is apply lacquer thinner to the strips of glue, and then I'm going to cover them with plastic and let them sit for 5 to 10 minutes while that glue loosens up underneath. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour the lacquer thinner directly on the glue. And then I'm going to cover the whole thing with plastic and let it sit for about 5 to 10 minutes. And after it sits for a little bit, then I can come back in here with my scraper and I can scrape away the glue and the excess paint, which I then go ahead and put in the trash. That way it doesn't stick back to the paint or stay in balls before I can remove it. Okay, so once you pour the lacquer thinner onto your glue, then you're going to use this tool right here, which is just a scraper that you find at the hardware store, to scrape up all the excess glue and sponge and some of the really thick areas of paint that are left behind. Once you do that, you're going to want to let the lacquer thinner dry a little bit just so that you can test out your glue spots to make sure that you removed all the glue properly. For my floor, actually, I found after the lacquer thinner dried, my glue was still a little bit rough even after I used the scraper. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my orbital sander and kind of go over those areas where the glue is kind of left behind just to make sure that my paint doesn't hang up on it when I go to repaint the floor. Let me show you what I mean. As you can see here, this is where my glue was. It's still a little bit sticky, and there's still some pieces of foam that are left behind in there. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take my sander with some coarse grit sandpaper, and I'm just gonna hit those areas again one more time just to make sure all the glue gets removed. Okay, so after you've gone all around the room and pried up all of the loose glue and sponge, what you need to do now is fill the holes with concrete patch. The concrete patch that I chose was at the hardware store in the same aisle as the Quikrete. It's actually called Pro Select and it's called Ready Mix concrete patch. You can buy a 10 or 50 pound bag of Quikrete if you want to mix it yourself. I just thought it would be easier to have something already mixed because I don't need that much. That container was actually about $6 and it's so far done all of the patching in my room, which is about 300 square feet. So I've already gone along to all of the holes in the perimeter where the tack strips were from the nails, and also through all the cracks in the middle of the room because I don't want the cracks to show when I go to repaint it. So after that dries, which is about 24 hours, it's time to take your orbital sander all along the areas where you patched and sand it down to make it nice and smooth. Okay, so now I'm just going to show you how I sand it. This is my orbital sander. It has some extra coarse grit sandpaper on it, and I just, as you can see, this is really rough where I patched the holes. I'm just going to run over it with my orbital sander and smooth down those areas. I'm just gonna check it to make sure that it's nice and smooth, and it is. Now I'm gonna go all the way around all the areas of the room where I patched the concrete patch and smooth it all out. Okay, it's been a couple of days since I've gone around the room and done all the sanding, and then we did get evacuated for a hurricane, so this process is taking a little bit longer than I originally wanted it to. So picking up where I left off, actually, after you go around the room and sand down all the little spots of concrete where you patched it, it's time to get the floor really, really clean. And some of the tutorials I've watched about doing this floor before, they say you should clean it until you can eat off of it, which is true because obviously you don't want things sticking in your paint. However, I had a really hard time because we have a dog in the house and her hair tends to blow around like tumbleweeds. So what I had to do was sweep it about 4 or 5 times. And then after that, I went over it with a wet mop. The problem is you have to wait 24 hours before you can paint it after you get the floor wet with water. So that posed another challenge because I have a fan on and I have hair blowing around the room. So basically what I had to do was do a coat of paint, check it for hair, pick any little pieces of hair or fuzz out of it, and then repaint over those areas. It was a tedious process, but I think in the end it looks really good. So this area is about 300 square feet, give or take some. It's a great room off my kitchen and does include a little hallway where my garage door comes in. So it took 2 pretty much full gallons of paint to cover the floor. And then after I painted with 2 coats, then I used the sealer coat that I showed you on the product list before. And I did end up doing 2 coats of that. It's a gloss. It's supposed to seal the floor and hopefully protect the paint from any minor scratches. I did not use a primer underneath my floor and I'm kind of regretting it now. Usually when I paint something that's gonna get high traffic or whatever, I like to do that layer of primer just so the paint really has something to stick to. I don't know what got into me on this project. I'm hoping that since I did use a product specifically for concrete that it'll wear better than I'm hoping it will at this point, because this is a lot of work and to go back through and strip all the paint off would be horrible and I probably wouldn't do it. I probably would just cover this floor with something else at that point. But let me show you what it looks like. It looks really good. I'm happy with it so far. So this is what it looks like after 2 coats of paint and and then 2 coats of the gloss. And I used the same gloss as I used the brand of paint as well over the top. And now I have to let the whole area dry for 72 hours before I can put furniture back on it. As you can see, it looks really nice. I am super happy with the way it turned out, considering this was I have 2 children in the house, plus a dog and a husband, and the carpet in here before was repulsive. I couldn't stand looking at it one more second. So as compared to the carpet, I really, really like the way it turned out. As you can see in the middle of the floor where I did some of the patching on the cracks, and I'm not super happy with the way that turned out because you can see it in the light, the way the sunlight is hitting it, but I did buy an 8x10 area rug for this room to kind of cover some of that up, so I know that won't show as much once this room is put back together with furniture on it. So after you paint your floor and let it dry for 3 days, which is 72 hours, and then you apply 2 coats of gloss, which actually only needs about 2 hours to dry in between each gloss, but then you need to wait another 3 days before you can place your furniture back into your room. And so that's where we are now, and so I just wanted to show you the big reveal of what the room looks like with furniture on top of the floors. As you can see, the 2 coats of gloss gave it a really nice shiny finish, and the area rug that I placed in here kind of covers up some of the flaws in the concrete. My carpet ran all the way into the hallway where my bathroom is, a guest room, and then also the garage and laundry room. This right here is actually the garage door. So you can imagine how messy the carpet was. Now I still need to get a few thresholds for each entryway. I'm just gonna get those at the hardware store. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I think it looks great. I did slide the furniture around on it when I was placing it, just because I didn't have help the second time when I moved it. And it seems to be wearing pretty well, and I hope it just does in the main traffic areas and underneath the bar stools where my kids eat. Thank you so much for watching my tutorial. Again, this is Jennifer. Please visit my website blog at www.decorsauce.com.